Hello, folks. My name is Tom Shell. I'm the head of solutions engineering for DataVisor. I'm going to be taking you through a view in our fraud and risk platform, which we built beginning a number of years ago to really take advantage of the full power of machine learning as applied to fraud and risk detection and mitigation. So what you're looking at here is really kind of the landing page for our platform, which really embodies how we think about dealing with fraud, which is to apply all of the rich data that we need, whether that's internal customer data, transactional data, as well as third-party information that can help us enrich the detection, give you the ability to orchestrate that data, to create features, use best-of-breed detection techniques, rules engines, supervised, unsupervised machine learning, and then ultimately make very quick decisions as to, is this fraud or is this not fraud? Is there some emerging trend I need to deal with, or do I just simply need to decide that this user showing up is fraudulent? So again, we'll jump right in, and there's a lot we won't get to in the time that's allotted for this demonstration, but I'll try to give you a good flavor for how our customers start to use the system, which oftentimes is with a dashboard. And so what you're seeing here is our case management dashboard, which gives you a view to what is happening in the world of fraud and risk, as implemented in a customer site. And you see here, there are a number of dashboard views that give you some sense for what's happening, whether it's risk score distributions across users and events that are being detected against, whether you're looking at real-time data, batch data, even in the case that you want to really understand where is fraud coming from, right? Is there a particular type of fraud technique or something emerging that I need to deal with, California, Louisiana, internationally? All of these dashboards are really built to allow you to focus on what's happening and where you need to pay attention and take some action. Now, most of our organizations, most of our customers will typically start in this case management view, right? And I do want to talk to just one quick idea here, and this notion of unsupervised machine learning. Now, one of the interesting techniques that we use is a form of machine learning that does not require or necessitate any kind of historical labels or deep historical context or understanding. No training data is required, right? We can essentially cluster in a high dimensional way across all the characteristics and begin to identify groups of users, groups of transactions, groups of entities that all have similar characteristics, right? And if one or more of those users or entities perhaps are fraudulent or have been tagged as high risk, then it's highly likely that many of these others in this particular cluster may also be high risk, or at least should be dealt with and investigated deeply. Now, what's interesting here is that we are, for this entire cluster and group of users, we have calculated a risk score. We are providing detections and reason codes that identify precisely why we think that this is a risky scenario. And we actually provide the option for you to, in bulk, actually identify good, bad, uncertain, or assign all of these users, all these transactions for further review or deeper investigation. This is one of the ways in which we begin to detect sort of unknown or emergent forms of fraud and allow you to take quick bulk actions across large numbers of transactions or users. Now, if I go back a little bit, one of the other interesting sort of techniques or approaches that customers will take a look at is, let's see what the alerts are, for a particular day or a particular time frame. And let me go through case by case and look at these individual users and identify if there are characteristics I want to deal with. Now, when we're looking at a flagged user, an alerted user, or a case here, right, we have the ability to take action on a per user, per case basis. We can see the rules that were actually used to trigger or alert or fire to identify that this particular user should be more deeply investigated, as well as the specific attributes that were used for that, right? You can actually see detection history. You can see specific user events that are associated with this over time, and what the transaction was and the data that actually triggered these rules so that you can take some kind of action. Now, I'll go back. One of the interesting things that we can also do is take this deeper look, right, and use a linkage analysis capability that's particularly useful in understanding, how this user might relate to others. Now, here's an example of kind of a merchant fraud scenario where this particular user that we're investigating is interacting with numbers of different merchants. Some are known bad merchants, right, who have, some, untagged or not detected users, some users that have been identified as known fraud. We have another merchant that has not necessarily been tagged as fraudulent, but it seems that most of the users interacting with that merchant is fraudulent. So these are all indications that this user that we are investigating perhaps is part of some sort of fraud ring or has characteristics that are very similar to other fraudsters. So again, these are all sort of data elements that let you make very quick decisions around, is this fraud? Is this a fraud ring? Is there some sort of coordinated attack taking place? And how do I take quick action to minimize the impact to user experience while making sure that we're detecting as much fraud as possible with the fewest numbers of false positives? Now, another couple of things that we can go into from here that I think is interesting. If we go back to our case management view, right? Often I think what organizations want to understand is, how do we get here, right? How are we doing these detections? Well, what we've built, and I think this is part of the secret sauce for DataVisor, is we have built a full data orchestration, feature engineering, and orchestration capability. So we can map all the various data sources quite easily into the system without having to build consolidated data warehouses or data lakes, those sorts of things, and make it very easy for customers to map their data to known types of detection. So we'll take a transaction fraud. Now, this is a package of template-based features or signals that if we take a look at this through a simple mapping exercise, right, we could map customer data, customer features directly into the DataVisor features here. And what's interesting is by mapping only 10 fields here, right, these 10 fields, we can generate 76 different features or signals that allow us to detect various forms of transaction fraud. Now, give me a sense for the types of things. There are various, looking at timestamps per month. You're looking at transaction counts, so counting the numbers of transactions that actually are flowing through these types of features. Various different calculations. This all provides the detection techniques, rules, and models, and your data science community the ability to have extremely high fidelity around detecting those circumstances that are highly indicative of fraud. Now, and what's interesting is once you've gone through this mapping process, right, you have the ability to then create rules that let you take action. One, detect, right, based on a particular feature, detect a particular condition, take an action, move it, block a transaction, move it to a different review queue, but ultimately make some decisions about what you want to do. And in fact, there are some examples of various rules here that have been created, both in draft, they're still being tested, or perhaps in production in this particular instance, where you can see what the actions are, what the performance of this rule is over time, and even the conditions that trigger it. And here's some examples of various users that have been targeted or flagged by this particular rule. So again, there's a lot to talk about and a lot to go deeper on. And I wish we had more time. We'd love to talk to you more about this, should you be interested. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.